as a principle, do you think it's okay for people to refuse to do business with others they disagree with? You think that's all right?
Absolutely. And I think that you sidestepped my question when I asked if you would have done business with Nazi Party members in the 40s, because that's something that you're obviously an educated, intelligent person. You can determine if you would have done so. And your failure to answer that, I think, is indicative of your position.
Well, I was doing it out of politeness to you because it's such a ludicrous comparison. I didn't want to humiliate you by pointing that out, but I'll do so now since you pushed it. That is an absurd thing to say, and of course, there's no comparison at all. But if we could just move beyond that, you
explain to me the absurdity in my statement, sir.
That Trump is Hitler? I mean, I think it's self-discrediting. I mean, there's nothing about.
I didn't say Trump was Hitler. I said Trump is a fascist.
Right. Okay. I doubt you could define the term, but let me just get to specifics here. You say it's okay.
Well, then why don't you educate me? Then educate me with the term, because obviously hundreds of people that have attacked me today.
You're the one throwing out the term fascist.
What an authoritarian dictator is, I'm quite aware what the definition is. I'm quite aware of what a fascist is. I'm quite aware of what fascism means. I'm quite aware of all of these definitions. And the reality is that his behavior, even with the top media experts or leaders of the country, just 2 days ago, was a totally authoritarian behavior. When he brought him to his ivory tower. When he brought let me finish. When he brought him to his ivory tower and berated the United States press and set the precedent that if you resist him, that he will. He didn't even have the moral turpitude to do it openly. So first,
you're trying my patience here. I mean, I'm sorry, because what you're doing is belittling historical reality. Being rude to news anchors who make $3 million a year is not the same as rounding up an entire ethnic group and killing them or invading Poland. It's just not. And so for you to say that really does sort of diminish actual historical crimes. But again, I don't want to dwell on that because I think it diminishes you by doing so. Let me just, I want to get to this point because I think it's meaningful.
Feel free to diminish me as much as you would like.
You're doing it to yourself. Look, I think it's totally valid to not like Trump, and I think it's valid to be mad at people who voted for him. I'm not denying your right to do that. But if we were living in a fascist dictatorship, armed men would appear behind you and drag you off the screen. So let's not sort of overstate the reality of modern America. But let me ask you this. The left has argued consistently that it is not allowable.
Maybe you do need to look at your history, because that's not exactly how Hitler began. That's not exactly how Putin began. There are many elected dictators that didn't start off by dragging people away the first day, because that's not how it works. You might want to do some reading of history yourself.
Okay. I think we're veering into hysteria here, but let me just ask you this one question, because again, finally, I think it's important. The left has argued consistently for the past 8 years that if you disagree with somebody, his behavior or beliefs, you are not allowed to decline to do business with him. That is discrimination, and you've seen it in a famous case over wedding cakes and gay marriage, and yet you're saying that's totally fine.
I don't claim to speak for the left. I don't claim to speak for any group. I don't claim to speak for an organization. I claim to speak for myself. And I believe that standing up against injustice is the foundation of what our country is all about. I believe having the moral turpitude to stand up against the masses is what a citizen and a patriot actually does. I believe that having the courage to risk your business, the courage to risk your reputation, the courage to risk your physical well-being against mass hysteria, to choose one of your terms, is absolutely what is mandated by our Constitution if you want to adhere to it properly.
Boy, you are on a moral vanity trip like I've never seen. Has it occurred to you that every rich, famous person, fashionable person in America agrees with you? That you're taking no risk at all? That in fact, people like you are celebrated in every American newspaper and award ceremonies? I mean come on.
The argument you just made was absurd. It is irrelevant. Reality is irrelevant what people of position and power and wealth believe to be the case. Once upon a time, all of the wealthy and powerful people believed the earth was flat. They were incorrect regardless of their own personal beliefs.
Matt, I'm just saying you're not taking a huge risk in doing this, other than discrediting yourself and embarrassing yourself in front of your neighbors.
How many death? Hey, excuse me, sir. How many death threats have you received today?
I don't know. I'm out of time. Hard to see you as a victim. I do admire you for saying what you think in public. I'm always for that, even if I disagree.
I'm not a victim in any way, shape, or form. I am not a victim, and I've never claimed to be a victim.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Matt.
This is, one of my favorite subgenres, which is Tucker humiliates a leftist, or actually Tucker allows a leftist or a liberal to humiliate themselves, right? So this person has literally no idea what he's talking about. The comparison between Donald Trump and anybody working in that administration to like a Nazi party or Hitler is so hyperbolic, so ludicrous, so absolutely outrageous that you cannot even take this seriously, okay? And this person's throwing out every buzzword. He's throwing out fascism, he's throwing out whatever. So basically what he's saying is that, you know, because somebody does not align with your political beliefs, that you shouldn't do business with them. I'll be interested to see if this person's business is still open. I doubt that it is, because I don't know that any business that has somebody that is that idiotic running it is going to stick around for that long. But this really speaks to where this country was at the moment that Trump was president. The Trump derangement syndrome that happened because the entirety of the mainstream media sort of turned this hate machine onto Donald Trump and just sort of unleashed it on him every second of every day. You could not hear anything but anti-Trump, anti-Trump, anti-Trump. It was a really crazy moment in American history to live through. And I believe that it was when the mainstream media completely showed its own cards. I feel like if they had even tried to remain even a little bit objective during any of that era, that they probably could have, you know, kept the wool over people's eyes for another 10, 15, 20 years. But they completely humiliated themselves and completely revealed themselves. But back to this person that is, you know, throwing these terms like fascism, he's throwing all of this other stuff. Obviously, it's completely ridiculous. Obviously, Tucker Carlson allowed him to humiliate himself. And, you know, looking back at sort of these flashback moments from that era, the only thing that I can hope is that maybe we've all sort of moved past this moment in America to where we are discriminating against each other based on political beliefs, and we are now looking at each other as the enemy because we vote differently, as opposed to looking at China as the enemy, who is literally trying to destroy this country and take over the world as the #1 superpower.